Technology is a great thing when it works.
Very well.
Okay. We're going to move into announcements, and we're going to start with Ms. Frog this evening. Ms. Frog, do you have any announcements?
Yes. First of all, I wanted to announce Read Across America Week, which obviously we're going to be hearing more about tonight. That is going to be the week of March 3rd, and I'm excited to be participating at Harpeth Valley Elementary in Buena Vista. Jill Spearing and I are going to be co-hosting a meeting on testing, and we'd love to have parents and community members and teachers attend. That meeting is going to be on Monday, February 24th at East Literature Magnet on Gallatin Road, and it will be held from 5 to 6:30, and I want to thank Jill for doing all the hard work setting it up.
Thank you. Mr. Hayes. Mr. Pinkston.
Thank you. I'm going to former school board member Mark North for a minute while I pause for a moment of remembrance. Last month, the Glencliff High School community and really all of MNPS lost a friend. Coach Jim Wilson passed away after a long illness. Coach Wilson was a native Nashvilleian and a graduate of my alma mater, Overton High School, where he was a standout football and baseball player. He went on to Lipscomb University, or college as it was known back then. He embarked later on a 39-year career as a teacher, mentor, and coach to hundreds of young men and women. Coach Wilson spent his early career at Good Pasture Christian School, where he coached football and baseball. He spent 18 years at Glencliff High School, building the football program to the point at which, in 1989, the Colts went to the Clinic Bowl. He later coached at East Nashville Magnet, Friendship Christian. Coach Wilson was also the father of Clint Wilson, the current principal of Glencliff High School, where great things are happening in academics and athletics. We really do appreciate the Wilson family's commitment to MNPS, our kids in the community, and keep them in our thoughts and prayers following the loss of Coach Wilson. Two other items. Next week on Tuesday, January 18th at 5 p.m., we'll have a meeting of the board's Budget and Finance Committee to pick up where our discussions left off at the end of 2013. There have been some substantive developments since our initial budget estimates for the 2014-15 operating year. We know by now, for example, the size of the teacher pay raise that Governor Haslam has proposed. That then gives us the ability to estimate our cost of the local share. There'll be hopefully some preliminary estimates on Dr. Register's proposed pre-K expansion plan. Looks like charter enrollment growth projections are changing, so that will affect the overall numbers as well. There are other moving parts that are becoming clearer. So Mr. Henson and his team are continuing to sharpen their pencils, and we'll be ready for a more detailed conversation next week. So please mark down Tuesday, January 18th at 5 p.m. Finally, speaking of the budget, I'd like to congratulate Ms. Frog. Turns out she is a trendsetter. The resolution she introduced in December went viral among other districts that are part of the Coalition of Large School Systems. As of this month, the state's 4 largest school systems, representing 34% of Tennessee's public school students, are now officially on the record urging the state to confront issues related to underfunding of the basic education program. The state appears to be listening for now, with Governor Haslam convening a task force to examine the problems. Members of that task force include Mr. Henson. We'll see if that process generates more action than talk, but it's a good start to what hopefully will yield a positive outcome. So good job, Ms. Froh. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Shepherd.
I'm still pinching myself from the visit from the president at McGavock High School. It was so surreal. It was so wonderful. And I wanted to thank publicly the faculty and staff, Principal Wall, and all the students at McGavock High School for making everyone feel so welcome that day of the presidential visit. Earlier, Dr. Register received an email from a member of the advanced team, and he was praising everybody that was involved with that, but he was especially impressed with the pride and the politeness of the students at McGavock High School. So I want to thank everyone for being such a gracious host, and that's how we do things in the South, right? So thank you, and I just wanted to go on record publicly to thank them for that.
Thank you. Ms. King?
Sure, thanks.
Mic a little bit closer to you. There you go. Thank you.
Is that better? Okay. Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to Jennifer Berry at Stratford. She won Tech Educator of the Year, which I find Awesome. And then also, I'm like a magnet lately to Pearl Cone. I'm obsessed with Pearl Cone lately. Although, Jay, you'll be excited to hear this. I was there on Friday for a tour, and just listening again to the school leader there, Dr. Stewart, cast her vision. I mean, she spoke about 10 minutes about what she's aiming to do, and the academic press is what she called it, sort of the 24/7 focus on great teaching and learning. Obsessed. I love her. So it was just inspiring to be part of that audience and hear her say all of that, and to hear her staff members just clearly rallied behind that particular vision. And then she also spoke of the culture of caring. Like, it's not good enough to just focus on academics. We actually have to create a community of caring. And it was just very impressive. And then also, as a former student athlete, I want to shout out, there's also 8 Pearl Cone students who just signed for college athletic scholarships on National Signing Day. Jeffrey Doss, Hayden Gregory, Carlos Johnson, Eric Knight, Caleb McGlam, Terrell Nelson, Anthony Patrick, and Eric Reed, which I find extraordinary as well, since a lot of lessons are learned on the field as well as the classroom. So,
Absolutely. Thank you. Ms. Spearing?
Thank you. Last week, I had the opportunity to visit Dan Mills, and I missed the,
Thank you.
I missed the tour in the afternoon, but during the morning, I had the opportunity to sit in on a writing conference on persuasive writing with first graders, 7-year-old students. And it was the first grade team. There was no reading coach, no principal there. This team of teachers analyzed various student writings using a rubric. And it was fascinating to listen to their various opinions and yet to reach consensus on all areas. And then within 30 minutes, they also related their theory to practice, brought in research, and decided their next steps. It was just absolutely wonderful. I hated that I was not able to be there in the afternoon. But I think that Patty Yon is just an amazing principal. And the Elizabeth Hosey is the reading coach there, and she has just done a magnificent job. I also want to, several of us have been interested in school morale, and I want to congratulate Sue Kessler and April Snodgrass at Hunter's Lane. This week, the ASCD, Educational Leadership Journal, published their writing on the house that affirmations build, and honoring everyone's contribution to making a school great builds both community and morale is the name of the article that they wrote. And I just think that's wonderful to be published in a national journal like that. Big congratulations to Hunter's Lane. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Brandon? Yes. Okay. And I just have a few announcements before we move ahead. I always get a lot of students saying thank you to me for announcing this. Progress reports will be issued tomorrow. So I expect those emails to start rolling in, young people. Also, happy Valentine's Day in advance to everyone in the boardroom and watching at home. Since we won't be here on Friday, happy Valentine's Day to all my board sweethearts here. The Antioch Cluster PAC meeting is going to be held on Monday, February 17th. Unfortunately, I don't have a location. I will assume it's going to be at Antioch High School, but I'm not for sure on that. It'll be at 5:30. Also, on Tuesday, February 18th, is the TSBA Day on the Hill. As my colleague has already mentioned, let's make plans. If you can be there, please make plans to do so. There's something really exciting going on. Resume writing workshop for parents will be on Tuesday, February 18th at Glencliff High School at 6 p.m. So that should be really interesting. And one of the things that I'm super excited about, A.Z. Kelly will have a New Wing celebration dedication on February 27th at 10 a.m. at the school on 5834 Pettus Road. So I'm really looking forward to that, since Principal Dunn has been bragging a really lot about that. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that. So that, I guess, concludes our announcements for this evening, and we will move on to awards and recognitions. Dr. Steele.
evening, Madam. As you know, the Country Music Association recently donated $1 million to MNPS through the Keep the Music Playing initiative. This brings our overall total to more than $7.5 million since 2006. This has purchased over 6,600 instruments in all of our middle and high schools and elementaries. In appreciation and celebration for this transformative support for music education from the Country Music Association, I am very pleased to welcome Ron Samuels tonight. Mr. Samuels is here as the Vice Chair of the Country Music Association Foundation. A well-known leader and executive in the community, Mr. Samuels is a founder, CEO, and chairman of Avenue Bank. He is also recognized as one of Nashville's most visible and engaged community members, as the former chair of the Chamber of Commerce, as well as providing service in the arenas of education, economic development, professional sports, and more. However, it is his participation in the Hummingbirds, which is Avenue Bank's legendary corporate band, that truly brings him rock star status. In appreciation, we are presenting the Country Music Association with a framed certificate, and we are planning a commissioned piece to be created in their honor over the next year. We have talented composers, students, and teachers in this district that we're going to put them to work to create a piece, commission a piece for the Country Music Association. So if we can come forward, and Ron would like to speak briefly.
Thank you all so much. I'm proud to be here to represent the CMA Foundation Board tonight. They all send their greetings. This is our vision has always been to inspire a love of music to people around the world through the charitable giving of the country music community, and there's no better place to do that than right here, and so we're delighted to have been a part of this and really look forward to expanding this program. So thank you all very, very much. This is much appreciated, and I will share that with the board.
We'll take a picture here.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next up, Laura Shell.
Greetings. I'd like to welcome Jacqueline Rudderow, Program and Communications Manager from VH1 Save the Music Foundation. Metro Schools has benefited from VH1 Save the Music generosity for the past 15 years with gifts of piano labs, guitar labs, and band instruments to 39 schools, an enduring partnership that has provided a national voice for music education and also for what we're doing here in Nashville. Jacqueline exemplifies the ideals of a strong partner. She is here every year meeting with the administration, visiting schools, listening, asking questions, and urging excellence. Please welcome Jacqueline.
Thank you all so much for having me. A little bit about VH1 Save the Music Foundation. We're a nonprofit organization that works to ensure that all students nationwide have access to the benefits of music education. The VH1 Save the Music Foundation purchases new musical instruments to reinstate music education programs that have been cut due to budget restrictions or to restore programs at risk of elimination because of lack of instruments. This commitment was made in response to the growing body of research and feedback showcasing the correlation between students who receive ongoing music education and overall achievement. And little side note, I have been speaking about the Nashville study all over the country this fall. It is phenomenal, and I just applaud you all for doing that. It is really helping in the advocacy on a national level. Research has proven that children involved in music programs have greater spatial reasoning skills, perform better in math and reading. They also have higher self-esteem, work better in teams, have improved school attendance, are more likely to graduate from high school and attend college, and are less likely to be involved in gangs and substance abuse. Since 1997, the VH1 Save the Music Foundation has donated $51 million worth of new musical instruments to 1,900 public schools in 192 school districts across the country, improving the lives of more than 2.3 million students. Here in Metro Schools, we've been a long-standing partner, as Lori mentioned. Our partnership began in 1999, where we donated the first grants to schools such as Antioch Middle School, who received a grant of band instruments to start their instrumental music program. Since then, we have granted to 39 schools district-wide, donating more than $1 million worth of new instruments to date. Our 2013 grantee school is Aiken Elementary, where music teacher Rita Black is making magic with her new keyboard lab over there. And VH1 Save the Music is choosing to deepen our giving next year for the 2014-15 school year in areas of the country with the greatest potential for impact. So we will be budgeting for 3 grants of new musical instruments for 3 schools here in Nashville next year, donating a total of $90,000 worth of instruments. And those awarded will be new schools who don't have instruments from us in the past, so I'll be working with Lori and Nola to identify those best candidates this spring. Our long-term investment would not be possible without the continued support of the Director of Schools and the school board. Your continued commitment to music education for all children in Nashville makes partnerships like ours possible, and we're proud to be part of the work here to build opportunities for children across this great city. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Henson?
Thank you. It's my pleasure and honor for us to have Mr. Bob Carlson here with us this evening. Bob, if you would come forward. Bob is with the Council of the Great City Schools. He's visiting us from Washington, D.C., and he has a special presentation that he would like to make this evening.
And thank you. I'm pleased to be here this afternoon and appreciate the opportunity you have given me to say a few words. As some of you know, I have strong attachments to this district. They go back to the days when Dr. Bill Weiss served as Deputy and Assistant Superintendent for Business Services and Facilities, and later as the Director of Schools. I owe a lot to him, and some of the things I've done at the Council were rooted in the conversations I had with him over the years. And I deeply appreciate the ongoing support for this work by my colleagues here in the district. One of the conversations led to the very reason I am here, and that is to extend special recognition to a colleague who is an employee of the Metro Nashville Public Schools. By way of background, the Council of Great City Schools initiated the Urban School Executives Program in 2012 to prepare mid-level managers who meet the highest professional standards and have the attributes if given the opportunity to assume senior executive positions to take on the challenges that large urban school districts face. The Council knew there are training programs out there, but none that focus exclusively on the unique needs of the nation's large urban school districts. The Council based its Urban School Executive Program on the lessons it's learned from the some 200 reviews it has conducted in over 50 of its member districts that illustrate the strategic, organizational, leadership, management, and operational issues and challenges that senior executives face. In the past 2 years, 14 candidates, with an additional 10 candidates in the current class, have been nominated by council member districts as individuals who they believed have met high professional standards and had the attributes to be senior executives if given the opportunity. This certainly was the case when Chris Henson, your Chief Financial Officer, nominated a candidate from the Metro Nashville Public Schools to be part of the Council's 2013 class in the Urban School Executive Program. The Urban School Executive Program has 3 requirements. First, the candidates are required to attend the Council's annual meeting of Chief Financial Officers to hear firsthand the challenges and issues these senior executives are facing. They are also required to select readings and facilitate monthly seminars on programmatic issues that have included business continuity planning, performance management, cross-functional coordination and communication, aligning business practices, project management methodologies, and linking strategic plans, business plans, and performance budgeting. And lastly, and probably most daunting, they are required to return to present 15-minute overviews to the chief financial officers at their annual meeting in November, which outline a 90-day, 1-year, and longer-term strategic business plan to address the systemic issues and challenges that they would expect to face when accepting a senior-level executive position in a council member district. So on behalf of the Council of the Great City Schools, I am pleased to present the Council's 2013 Certificate of Achievement to Mr. John Ford, the District's Director of Financial Operations, who is judged by his peers as most qualified to assume a position as a Chief Financial Business Officer, and who will now join the 3 others who have previously received this recognition. So if Mr. Ford would join Chris, I would like to present and read the acknowledgement contained in the certificate. John?
Yes, sir.
Snuck up on me. The Certificate of Achievement awarded to John H. Ford, Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools, for meeting the highest professional standards set forth by the Council of the Great City Schools Urban School Executives Program, and possessing the attributes necessary to assume a senior executive position capable of addressing the challenges that large urban school districts face. Signed, Michael Casserly, Executive Director, and myself as Director of Management Services, dated September 2013. John?
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Well, Bob, this was a surprise for me. I didn't expect to see you here. Good to see you, Bob.
Nice to see you, John.
Yeah. I'm grateful for the opportunity to have participated in the Council of Great City Schools Urban School Executive Program and to be recognized today in this manner. This is an extreme honor for me and my family. I applaud the Council for reaching out to urban school districts across this nation in an effort to train business officers on school financial operations, focusing exclusively on unique needs of some of the largest urban school districts. Special thanks to my family for being here to stand.
Stand up, family.
For being here tonight, and to Glenda Gregory and Chris Henson for recommending me this program. Bob, thank you for coming, for personally hand-delivering my award. I really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your stay here in Nashville.
And believe me, you're not done. We got more planned. Congratulations, John, and thank you. I'd love to have that.
Oh, okay. We're on. That's pretty awesome. Before we move into public participation, I have one announcement that I inadvertently missed, and if I don't mention it, I can't go back to my home district. Beginning February 20th through March 15th, it will be the Frist Antioch Community Exhibition, and this This is an awesome event. It was held last year. It will be held at the Crossings Event Center in Antioch. And on display will be artwork by our students at Antioch High School as well as members of the community. If you get an opportunity to go by there, please do. You will not regret it. It is a fabulous event. And I'm not sure if they'll do this year, but last year the students actually recorded small little snippets of information about their artwork, so you kind of get an opportunity to find out a little bit more about the students and what their creative muse was. So if you get an opportunity, it will definitely be well worth your trip to Antioch, into the Antioch area. So thank you very much for that. So having said that, we will move into public participation. The board will hear from those persons who have requested to appear at this board meeting. In the interest of time, speakers are requested to limit remarks to 3 minutes or less. Comments will be timed. Board members will not immediately respond to speakers during the public comment period, but may follow up after the meeting. So if you would kindly, in the interest of time, I will call the first speaker up, followed by the second speaker. And if the second speaker would be ready, I would appreciate it. Mr. Stephen Henry, you are awesome. You're already at the podium. Thank you so much. Misty Teftler will be next.
Thank you. And members of the board, Dr. Registrar, good afternoon. My name is Stephen Henry, and I'm a middle school teacher and have been working with MNPS for 28 years now and currently serve as president of the Metropolitan Nashville Education Association. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you on the national spotlight and focus that you received during President Obama's visit. However, you may not be aware of yet another national recognition, this one coming from the U.S. Department of Education. MNPS and MNEA have been chosen again to participate at the department's Labor Management Collaborative, which will be held later this month in St. Louis. And again, we're the only association and district in the state chosen to participate. The U.S. Department continues to recognize our collaborative working relationship as a key indicator of our effectiveness and as well as being a model for the nation. And while for us it's just business as usual, because we choose to operate this way because we know it produces the best results for our teachers and students, it's also nice to be recognized on a national level for education reform that works. While I'm here to speak out about Read Across America, I also want to take a moment to thank Homework Hotline for the work that they are doing with our students in Middle Tennessee, and especially for their life-changing Call It Reading program you'll hear about in just a second. Now on to Read Across America. The National Education Association is building a nation of readers through its signature program, Read Across America. Now in its 17th year, this year-round program focuses on motivating children and teens to read through events, partnerships, and reading resources. On Monday, March the 3rd, Read Across America will be celebrated by millions of students in thousands of classrooms across the United States. MNEA encourages you and the Nashville community to grab your hat, to read The Cat in the Hat, and to share your love of reading and literacy within your district schools. Tonight, you're receiving resources to share with those schools, and I've also included a Cat in the Hat book that MNEA will donate in your honor to the school library or classroom of your choice. For more information about Read Across America, you can visit nea.org/Read Across America. And remember, you're never too old, too wacky, too wild to pick up a book and read with a child. Thank you.
Thank you. Missy Tefteller, followed by Michael Tefteller.
Chairman Mays, the Teftellers could not be here tonight. My name is Allison Fort. I'm the director of Call It Reading for Homework Hotline. Would it be okay if I made some substitutions in our personnel?
Absolutely.
There's actually only one other person who wants to speak up here with me, but I'd like to just recognize the other people who came with us.
Absolutely.
By having them stand. Okay, in front of you, you have a report that has the Homework Hotline seal on it. I represent a new program in Metro Schools. It's in its second year. We have dubbed it Call It Reading. It's a telephone tutoring program in reading, and right now we have 64 third graders from 6 different high-need Metro elementary schools enrolled in our program who are receiving calls twice a week from a single tutor. We feel that our program has been very successful. When you look at the statistics, I think you'll agree with us that, especially based on last year's performance, we have been doing very well. At this time, I'd like the following people to stand who came here in support of our program. Adrienne Archie, she is the Assistant Director and Director of Volunteers. Ann Brandt, who is on the Homework Hotline Board of Directors. And last of all, I want to make sure first that the Rycross are not here. Did the Rycross, were they able to come? Okay, then I'm going to call Demetrius Watley up here as my next speaker, and Demetrius at some point will recognize his family. Demetrius started out in our program last year in the 3rd grade program, but we told him we were not going to let him go. And if he wanted to be in a follow-up program this year, we would create one. So we now have 4th graders being called once a week to read with a tutor. So I'm going to let Demetrius tell you about his experience.
And we're going to give you a fresh new 3 minutes, Demetrius, because you're just so adorable.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
My name is Demetrius, and I'd like to tell you about the Homework Hotline. Homework Hotline has been great for me, and it made me jump over to a 6th grade reading level. And I like it very much, and it made me want to read a lot.
Can you tell them where you're headed next year?
And I'm heading to Liberty Collegiate, for middle school next year. And I'll be able to be reading better because Homework Hotline taught me everything that I know about reading. I would like to introduce my family, my mom and my dad in the back. Please stand.
Want to tell them what your favorite prize was, and then
And my favorite prize was a birdhouse that I actually got from my brother on his birthday. And he liked it, and we filled it up with some bird seeds, and birds came and ate it. So
this was one of his prizes that he received for his reading, for being faithful with his lessons with us on the phone. Okay, you want to tell him thank you? We'll go.
Thanks.
Thank you, Demetrius. Janice Rycross? Julius Rycross? They're not here? So we're done?
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Demetrius, you were awesome. All right, so we'll move on. Next, we'll go straight into our governance issues. Consent agenda, Ms. Shepherd.
Consent agenda is as follows.
Please, technical issues. Okay. Ms. Shepherd.
Approval of minutes, 1/14/14 regular meeting. B, supplement number 4 for Cane Ridge Elementary School, EOA Architects. C, amendment B for prototypical pre-kindergarten and kindergarten playgrounds at various schools, AZ Kelly Elementary School, custom recreation. D, change order number 7 to contract for asbestos abatement services, Levy Industrial Contractors, Inc. E, awarding of bids and contracts. 1, Beacon Technologies, Inc. 2, CDW-G. 3, Earthwalk Communications, Inc. 4, Dell Marketing, LP. 5, Multi-Health Systems, Inc. 6, NCS Pearson, Inc. 7, Psychological Assessment Resources, Inc. 8, Rico USA, Inc. 9, The Riverside Publishing Company. 10, Specialized Educational Services, Inc. F, recommended approval of request for compulsory attendance waiver. G, recommended approval of legal settlement case number L15136 for $18,500. And H, recommended approval of legal settlement case number L1553 for $60,000. Madam Chair, that concludes the consent agenda. I recommend it be approved as read.
It's a motion on the table. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor of approval? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Ms. Kim? Yeah, you're up.
Yes, I guess I'd like to move to approve the evaluation.
Okay, there's a motion on the table to approve the director's evaluation. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. No, we need to go ahead and raise them
Okay.
before. Yes, go
All
ahead,
right.
Ms. Froh.
All right. So I just had a few thoughts about the evaluation that I wanted to share. And I start out by saying, we as a district are not a corporation. We are not making widgets. We are educating human beings. And we are educating here in Nashville a population that is becoming increasingly economically disadvantaged. We've had a 42% increase in poverty over the last 10 years, and in that same time span, Nashville has seen a 58% increase in economic growth. And this increase in poverty has left us with about 75% of our student population considered impoverished. And to give you a little comparison, Williamson County has only 16% economically disadvantaged children. And we know that poverty has the greatest impact on educational outcomes. As a large urban district, we also serve a large number of non-English speakers and special needs children. And so we have overall a lot of challenges here in Nashville that other districts don't necessarily face around us. I've also had a lesson in funding this year and have learned that we are inadequately funded as a district. According to the state's BEP Review Committee, we were $75 million short in funding last year. We're over $1 billion. We have over $1 billion backlog on our capital projects. So I'm saying all of this to say, in spite of all of these challenges, in spite of all these unique challenges as an urban district, we are making steady and impressive progress as a district, and I think that is no small feat. We've come a long way in the last few years, and Dr. Registrar, I believe, has set us up to make even greater gains in the future. I think success breeds success, and that's where we're going. So I just want to say I'm really proud of the work that MNPS is doing, and I want to thank Dr. Registrar for his vision that has gotten us this far. I think that's going to take us further, and I think it's truly a vision of excellence.
Thank you. Any additional comments? If not, I'll make a few of my own. Ditto. Let's start there. I will say, Dr. Register, for over the last year, we have not been without our challenges. And for a superintendent to walk through the fire, I'll say, as you have for this district, it has been truly amazing. And the confidence level that I personally have in you is extremely high, and I think my colleagues would agree with me. We appreciate your direction, and we thank you for your leadership. It has been tremendous. And you've taken a few bullets for us, and that's not a small feat, and we really appreciate that. So under fire, you've been excellent. Our new strategic plan, I think, is going to move our district to a different level. We have, in the last couple of years, we are no longer seeking the direction, but we have become the model for direction, and a lot of that has to do with your leadership, so it is very much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, there is a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion?
It might be helpful to actually summarize.
Go right ahead.
Okay, so this is just the bottom line summary of the evaluation coming out of the committee. So I think as an important point of context is that a key change in this year's director's evaluation is a very pointed focus on student and system outcomes in addition to key strategic drivers of the outcomes as outlined in the district's 2018 strategic plan. And so for the first time, what that means is, for the first time, student performance is explicitly weighted within the director's evaluation, and specifically in the performance and strategy outcomes section in particular, which makes up 50% of the entire review. Student and system performance is weighted at 70%. And we believe this just reflects our intent as a board. We've just codified that we want to ensure the academic success of our students who are counting on us to provide them educational opportunities that will open up real choice in life. And ambitious academic and other goals back up our our intent to become the best urban school district by 2018. And I think that the evolution of this evaluation just now reflects those ambitions. Another point of context, I think that, or actually I can just move into the summary. Given our aggressive 2018 goals, we are encouraged by signs of progress. So first, as Ms. Mays referred to, the 2018 strategic plan, which has been developed over the last year, set a very high bar for what we expect and very formally codified what we believe, which is that our students can and will achieve at high levels across the district, no matter what background they come from, no matter what their income level. And we need outstanding teachers at every single level to help our students reach their full potential. Additionally, and I think this is a terrific evolution, is the development and release of the district's academic performance framework really provides a super transparent and balanced data-driven way of assessing progress at the level of this school. And thereby encourages school-level accountability, intervention, necessary change, while also highlighting the successes of schools that are performing at very high levels, and whose best practices then can be more easily scaled system-wide. And academically speaking, we did make some very promising progress in key areas. For example, 42.9% of students scored proficient or advanced on state assessments in the previous year, slightly up from 40.8%. And the percentage of students in grades 3 through 8 who are projected to score a 21 or higher on the ACT rose from 15.9% to 18.9%. So very promising signs that speaks to the hard work over the last 3 years, really? 4 years. So that's, I think, those are some of the bright spots. At the same time, an echo from last year's evaluation remains. Outcomes continue to be an area of concern for several members of the board. And so while we are moving in the right direction in several areas within the context of the ambitious 2018 goals, we want to move faster. So key proxies for college and career readiness, specifically ACT scores, dipped slightly from last year after several years of stasis. And within the context of our goal to ensure that 54% of our students are proficient or advanced on state assessments by 2015, and 71.4% must reach that bar by 2018. We know that the pace has got to accelerate meaningfully in just year over year. Speaking of the academic performance framework, we're keeping an eye on that. We want to make sure that the mean points continue to rise. We experienced a bit of a dip from 43.77 to 35.56. So I think what this says to me is that we've got a lot of good things going on. We've got some challenge ahead. But the numbers in aggregate just show that the road ahead is tough for us. I mean, we have set really ambitious goals. I'm proud of the fact that this district has set a very clear vision and direction and is willing to put numbers on the line and to be very clear about what we want. So that makes me think that it's possible because we know what we're headed to. Now it's just about gunning after it. In addition, we also know through the academic performance framework that specific schools can make significant progress in just 1 year. We've seen it already. We've got this APF now out there. We see that we can move it when we put our minds to it. So I think that should encourage us to become, ever more focused on what we need to do to improve. And what we've already identified in the strategic plan is real key levers that drive student learning: quality teaching, transformational leadership, and equity and excellence. So moving forward, we posed a few different questions. I mean, I think that the strategic plan does really quite, effectively and pointedly point to what we need to zero in on, which are those three big buckets: quality teaching, equity and excellence, and transformational leadership. And I think the question is just then, how can we actually ramp up the cycle of continuous improvement? How can we more aggressively scale up what is in fact working across the district, because we see a lot of bright spots across the district? What are we going to do to create environments in which amazing teachers and leaders want to grow, work, stay, and thrive? How are we looking at the full continuum from recruiting to selection to ongoing support and development to ensure that we have the best quality teaching and learning in every classroom across the city? So it's both straightforward and yet so hard in terms of making it all happen. But yeah, these are the questions I think that we're interested in asking and answering, and that we think, per the strategic plan, are key to our ongoing success. So that's the quick summary. I mean, one other note as well is that So this is, we're already going to take a look at the next iteration, which is going to be roughly 6 months-ish. We want to move to a 2 times a year cycle so that we're able to give quality and timely feedback to our director. And we're going to continue to evolve this document to try and best zero in and capture what we believe is critical to our ongoing success as a district. And that is it.
Perfect. Any further discussion?
Well, yes.
The progression, the steady progression as we have moved forward from the transformational leadership to now our strategic plan, and we appreciate your work. You're knowledgeable in curriculum instruction, and I see great things for our students going forward.
Thank you.
All right, we've got a motion on the table, and it's been properly second. Recommended approval of director's evaluation. Any additional discussion? All right, let's take a vote. All in favor of approval, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Dr. Register, would you like to make any comments?
Thank you very much. I appreciate the comments and the thorough review of the findings. I'll just be very, very quick and say that the conversations that we've had, the discussions that we've had over the last few weeks have been very constructive. I think that's really the value to gain in an evaluation process. And I feel like this evaluation process is really an evaluation for all of us, for the relationships between the board and me, the director of schools, but also you're tying this to the strategic plan is very important because it's really a look at how we're doing as a system as a whole. I feel very good about the direction that we're taking. I always am impatient to pick up the speed, but we're making great progress, and I look forward to the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. With that, we'll move into our next recommendation. Recommendation to approve reconfiguration of Bordeaux Elementary and Ross Elementary Schools to model pre-K centers for the 2014-15 school year. Is there a motion?
I so move.
All right. Is there a second? All right. Dr. Register, we'll turn it over to you, and then we'll go for discussion by board members. Any comments before we discuss?
Well, we have somewhat of a presentation, not the volume of information that we've given you, but I would actually like to ask Lisa Wiltshire, who's project director for this project, to come up, and Brenda Steele and Chris Weber and Phyllis Phillips, who is coordinator of pre-K programs, and Ken Murdoch. And we'll make a brief presentation. I feel like we're in the middle of a conversation here. We've spent quite a bit of time over the last month or month and a half really digging deeply into this issue. We've had some public meetings. We've had 2 public meetings on the subject, and we've spent quite a bit of time with the board and the staff looking at this. I think it's important for us to make a presentation for the community as at large to see what we're doing. And let's just say that our goal is to increase the number of seats available for 4-year-old children who want and need this program, and to improve the quality of programs district-wide that we have to offer. We know that there's a gap. We know that there's a gap in access to quality pre-K programs or quality 4-year-old programs in our district, and I'll propose that we cannot close an achievement gap until we deal with the access gap and the quality of programs for 4-year-olds. As you know, I feel very strongly that this needs to be our priority for this year to begin growing this. I don't think we can wait any longer. We know that the state's changed the age to begin school. We know that change in entrance age leaves some 800 to 900 students out in our district for being able to start the school, and perhaps to not have an opportunity for any programs. And we think the only mistake we can make is not to begin making a transition and growing this program to higher quality, serving more students. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to Lisa and ask Lisa to walk you through a brief presentation.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Register. Good evening. We'd like to take the opportunity, our pre-K team here, to walk you through a presentation to give you some more information we think is critical as you vote on this decision. This first slide is very hard to see, and you're not intended to read it. It's certainly up on the screens. But we wanted to start by echoing what Dr. Register just said, that this initiative is an absolute priority for us, and it is aligned with our strategic plan. And what you're looking at right now is the theory of system change that undergirds all of the work in our strategic plan. And what is highlighted there is our strategy 2, which is about equity and excellence. And we don't think we can begin a serious conversation about equity unless we talk about pre-K and early learning opportunities and expanding those opportunities for all students. And if you look at all three of our strategies, pre-K is certainly motivated by and directed out of looking at inequities that exist in terms of opportunities. But our plans for expanding pre-K and in particular focusing on quality really speak to all of the strategies and objectives in the strategic plan. So in terms of quality teaching, our objectives in the strategic plan are really personalizing learning according to individual student needs and interests, which is something that we plan to echo in our pre-K centers and classrooms that we'll be talking about tonight. Rigor and relevance, we think starting early and preparing students for the academic standards they're going to encounter in K-12 is critically important. We really see empowering learners when we're talking about 4-year-olds through relationships. And we know that the most important thing that we can do for our 4-year-olds is really build their confidence and their knowledge base that's going to guide them through all of their school experiences. It is connected to transformational leadership because we are looking at strong leaders for our centers, and we're talking about teachers and teacher leaders there who can both innovate and really develop and nurture a culture of learning in every pre-K center, every pre-K classroom, so that everyone in the building is a learner. And culture is really essential and the most important piece of what we're doing. We plan to focus very heavily on continuous improvement and continuous improvement in everything that we do, from curriculum to staff development. And we plan to follow a model and adapt it for pre-K in terms of the continuous improvement model that's been implemented successfully at our K-12 schools around the Plan, Do, Check, Act framework. And we really see this as an opportunity to expand leadership opportunities for families and teachers, and that is incorporated in all of our plans. And this was mentioned actually in the director's evaluation that we have really set some ambitious goals for our students for the next 5 years. And I just wanted to put this quote from Dr. Register up here because this is really undergirding everything we're doing, is this belief that if we plan to help our students and have our students meet these goals, we have got to start early. Kindergarten is too late in our mind. We need to start early, and we need to start with every child. As you know, we have very ambitious growth goals in terms of students outscoring their peers. We have some social emotional competencies that we believe we want students to continue to grow and develop as time as goes by each year. A couple of those are self-regulation and responsible decision-making, and we think those start, again, in preschool. And in terms of some of the metrics that Elisa mentioned, the 71% proficiency that we're targeting, the percentage of students that are projected to score 21 in ACT. When we started looking at the strategic plan and said, who are our third graders in 2018, and where are those students now, that's when we found that a number of those students don't have opportunities to start early and set that foundation, and that's just unacceptable to us. So that's really motivating a lot of this effort. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Phyllis Phillips, who's our pre-K coordinator, who's going to talk to you a little bit about our expansion plans.
Okay, so moving into the actual pre-K expansion plan, we are implementing a plan to significantly expand high-quality early education programs in Davidson County, which includes increasing the number of eligible students that we serve. And we're going to, in this expansion plan, we'll be implementing it in phases. So tonight's purpose will be phase 1, which is repurposing Ross Elementary and Bordeaux Elementary into model pre-K learning centers. Implementation will continue with phase 2, expanding high-quality pre-K seats in an area of great demand. We hope to establish an additional model pre-K center when we implement phase 2. Phase 3 and 4 and 5 will continue through 2018, where we will continue to expand high-quality pre-K seats. And now.
Good evening. As we talk about a cost analysis for phase 1, which was a question, for Ross Elementary, if we look at the conversion to a model pre-K center, the 2 existing pre-K classrooms at Ross will be included, to relocate 2 pre-K classrooms from Caldwell, and to relocate 2 pre-K classrooms from Glenn, which would serve a total of 6 pre-K classrooms serving 120 students. And the capital cost would be approximately $70,000. As far as the operating costs, it's cost neutral with no additional seats. But as we look at expanding for additional seats, there would be approximately $7,500 per student. And to add the 140 seats that we have been discussing, or 7 additional classrooms, that would be $1,050,000. If we look at the cost analysis for Bordeaux Elementary, converting it to the model pre-K classroom center, 2 existing pre-K classrooms from Bordeaux, relocate the 2 pre-K classrooms from Cumberland Elementary, which would be a total of 4 pre-K classrooms serving approximately 80 students, and the capital cost is of approximately $1.1 million for the building renovation that's been discussed. As far as the operating cost, it's cost neutral with no additional seats. However, there is additional seats which we are proposing, which would be approximately $7,500 per student, and we would like to add the 120 seats or more for 6 additional classrooms, which would cost $900,000. As we look at the community impact, we have been visiting schools and community sites, just kind of explain what is going on as far as our pre-K plan. As we look at the impact, it is the rezoning of K through 4 students at Ross and Bordeaux. We find that there is a neutral to positive impact on our diversity plan, all impacted schools. There is increased capacity utilization at all the impacted schools as well. The K through 4 students are impacted, provided with quality seats at their zone schools, and we'll provide transportation to their newly assigned zone schools. There is also multiple options, choice options available to families impacted by rezoning. And when we went to the visits, it was explained to them, as well as we will continue explaining their choices as far as if they choose not to go to the schools proposed. There are increased the number of high-quality seats available for our pre-K students and students impacted by change in school starting age requirement. And you know, August the 15th is our deadline for students who must be 4 this year. So we continue to have ongoing community meetings as well, and our future meetings are continuously still being planned. So we will be visiting next week with several of our meetings.
And we wanted to give you a little bit better sense of what we mean by high-quality programming and what we intend to have in these model pre-K centers, newly established centers. We have a pretty dynamic program development committee, and we have some work groups that have been hard at work looking at programming for the centers, best practice based on national research. And that group has met a couple of times, and we are looking closely at and adopting the what is considered really the gold standard in early education, which is the National Association for the Education of Young Children Program Standards. Those were given to you in your lengthy packet that you got over the weekend, and really there are 10 dimensions of high-quality programming there. We aren't going to spend the time to highlight all of them. One that I did want to highlight for you is the one around teaching. I think that one's particularly important. I will just read quickly the program standard. It's one sentence, but it says, the program uses developmentally, culturally, and linguistically appropriate and effective teaching approaches that enhance each child's learning and development in the context of the program's curriculum goals. You'll see, you have a lot more information on that, but what that really means is that our teaching staff that will work at these centers need to be adept at using multiple instructional approaches that really optimize all children's learning at this stage. Bringing the children's backgrounds, interests, experiences, styles, needs, and capacities to really guide and enhance the curriculum is critical. And for a program to address the complexities in teaching and learning, we think using a variety of effective instructional approaches is the right one. Additionally, part of this standard really requires teachers working as a team, so collaboration is going to be at the heart of what happens in these centers, especially because we have all of these classrooms co-located in one place. And in terms of kindergarten readiness, we have really started our work by backward mapping from what do we expect? What are the expectations of our students when they finish their pre-K year? How do we know that we have been successful in closing the school readiness gap? And we have a kindergarten readiness definition that's in development. What I wanted to show you here is really some kind of core characteristics of that definition. We believe that if children are going to be kindergarten ready, it really requires schools, families, and communities working together to provide the resources and learning experiences for children. Our outcomes are not just tied to pre-academic outcomes or academic outcomes for preschool students, but also to physical and social emotional. So we're really looking at every aspect of a child's life in terms of affording them the preparation for K-12 for their experiences. So social and emotional learning is a key piece of what we're doing. If you have in front of you it is a report card. It's empty. It's not anyone's particular report card. It is a pre-K standards-based report card. And this report card is something that is in use now in our pre-K classrooms, MNPS pre-K classrooms, and it is aligned to the Tennessee Revised Early Learning Standards, which are aligned to Common Core. And for our model pre-K centers, what I want you to know about this is that we believe these are the minimum skills and competencies that we want to see every child graduating from these pre-K centers having when they move into kindergarten. So we are looking closely at this. We are looking at enhancing this. And what we want to see is our students just blowing this out of the water, and we have to maybe come up with a new one because they're learning so much and getting so far in this year of development. So I wanted you to have that so you could get a sense of some of this very specific benchmarks in terms of outcomes that we're looking for children in pre-K. The other thing I wanted to share with you, and you also received this in your packet, and I would really encourage you, if you're interested, to read and review the revised Tennessee Early Learning Standards. They were revised in August of 2012, and as I mentioned before, they're aligned to Common Core. We believe, our program development group, our partners, and our teacher leaders, believe that these are very high-quality standards. They have been developed with care, and those will really be the standards that we start with in terms of the pre-K centers. What I wanted to highlight for you is a couple of things. First are some guiding principles that undergird the standards. And we really believe these, and these get to the core values of what you should expect to see in our model pre-K centers, and also what we mean when we say quality. So if you look at those, they're in the packet that you got as well as the PowerPoint, but we really believe that all staff and faculty in our centers have a belief that all children are capable of learning, achieving, and developing. That's a very important value, and it is the first and starting one for everything that we do. Additionally, understanding that every child is very unique in terms of their growth and development and capacities. So how that translates for our teachers is being adept at individualizing instruction, which is something we want to see all the way through K-12, but it's particularly important as children are in the most experiential phase of their development. We believe that our faculty and staff need to also be adept in understanding how learning is cumulative, and it happens both at different paces and in different ways. So you may design, as a teacher, learning experiences and lesson plans, as many of our teachers here will tell you in pre-K, and you don't know if the children really understand the concept. It may show up the next day, it may show up a week later, it may show up at the end of the year. So our teachers need to be very adept at recognizing that and building on that and understanding that. And the minute the children understand the concept, to scaffold the children so they can apply that concept to new learning. And that gets into the I don't want to get to education speak ease here, but the zone of proximal development just means that our teachers are adept at understanding where children are and challenging them to the level just beyond where they are so they can continue to achieve success. We believe and we know that children at this age are very active, as any of you that have known 4-year-olds know, and they're eager to learn. So teachers capitalizing on that and really harnessing that activity into meaningful play and learning experiences is very important. We also, a hallmark of our pre-K centers is really a curriculum that is multidimensional, meaning that the concepts that we're teaching students and the standards and the work that goes along with that is interrelated. So the lesson plans, and we'll actually walk you through briefly a lesson plan, and that will illustrate what we're talking about. One other thing I really want to touch on here is how important it is that the relationships that are developed in this pre-K year are vital to student learning. So the adult-student relationships as well as the students' relationships, both with themselves and peers, because we know that self-regulation is the core executive function in terms of brain development. And that is really going to be a big outcome that we're looking at in terms of every student having the ability to self-regulate. And how that manifests itself in classrooms has everything to do with it, culture, management, and we also want to make sure that we are engaging families because we believe that the family is the most important teacher in a child's life. And so we are going to be very focused on engaging parents and families in our centers. With that, if you notice, there are toys in the boardroom down on the floor.
I thought those were for us to play with.
We wanted to give you a little bit more flavor and illustration on what a lesson plan might look like in our pre-K centers. And if this were the only thing on the agenda, we had fun thinking about how we might pair you all in groups and actually have you all act as the students, but we will not do that. We wanted to show you these materials so that we could walk you through a lesson plan that is really aligned to a couple of mathematical standards. And the lesson plan is entitled Trucks. And if you also look, you all have a copy of the full lesson plan, which is 17 pages long. Let me tell you where this came from. As part of our benchmarking work, we are looking at some of the work going on in New York with the move to universal pre-K. And there are many, through the Department of Education and their partnerships, educators that have worked on task force in developing some remarkable resources. And we wanted to pull one out so that we could show you what we mean by a high-quality lesson plan. So these all came from Common Core aligned tasks for mathematics and literacy. And there's much more to this than we have time to show you, but I definitely wanted you to have a sense of what this might look like. So what can look like 4-year-olds having fun and playing and a teacher happily interacting with them can on the surface look more superficial than it is. This particular lesson would involve some of the materials that you see before you, some different size and kinds of trucks and blocks. And through this, this particular lesson plan is aligned to a couple of standards that you can see on the screen. But what would happen in this situation is the teacher is thinking about how to form the foundation of algebraic reasoning, as well as really enhancing students' number sense in terms of counting and cardinality, and you can see the standards there. These are aligned to very rigorous pre-standards for kindergarten Common Core. And so what would typically happen is that students have a natural inclination to use mathematical reasoning in everyday circumstances. So whether it be setting up for lunch or figuring out how to share one thing among several people. So the teacher would really build on that. And this involves a word problem using addition and subtraction skills. So the first day, the teacher might prepare students by integrating literature, books about trucks. The teacher might ask the students to bring in different kinds of toy trucks, and the children would share and graph the different kinds of trucks. The teacher might have the students clean up and categorize trucks and count them as they're putting them away. The teacher might organize a walk outside around the neighborhood and prompt students to notice trucks, notice features of trucks, different aspects of what they see, and then have the children come back and either build to recreate their experiences and work through their learning or draw pictures. So there's a multitude of ways to really have teachers engage with students, and this really forms the first assessment that teachers make about how much knowledge these children are coming to the classroom with in terms of number sense and understandings of the world around them. So the teacher would spend the first day focused on that, and the second day moving into what is a math game that you could do as a whole group, small groups with individual students. And through this math game, the teacher might prompt students with questions about integrating vocabulary like combine, take away, subtract. What happens when 2 trucks move under a bridge and 2 are on the road? If you added one more, how many would be on the road? Those sorts of questions and prompts that are really scaffolding children's understanding of vocabulary and the vocabulary as it relates to number sense. You could explore linguistic concepts such as into tunnels and onto bridges, as well as attributes of blocks, and integrate addition and subtraction skills within that. And so there are a few pictures that we have that demonstrate what student work might look like coming out of these lesson plans. So initially, you might have students draw their representations of how they see a truck, and later have them draw a week later and see if they've added any attributes. Part of what we look at in student work involves interacting with students. So when you do prompt them, what do they understand? Can they add? Can they subtract? When they're prompted to take away, do they have that concept understood? I'm going to kind of fly through that, but that is just giving you a sense of what we mean by assessment, what kinds of interactions might happen, and the kind of learning that really undergirds. For this, I'm going to turn it back over to Phyllis, who is going to talk a little bit about the application and selection process specifically for these model pre-K centers.
Okay, so we're going to end with the application and selection process. The application process will begin April 14th through the 17th. A team is currently working on the application process to include school choice and targeted recruitment. Our goal is to align the pre-K application process with the current K-12 school choice process. The selection process will be a random selection with priority placement. This application process will be streamlined for our families. It will also allow for students, for potential students whose birth dates that fall outside of the new August 15th enrollment for kindergarten to apply for a pre-K seat. At this time, I want to recognize some of the teacher leaders that are here that are on the programming committee and helping us with that design. So if they would just stand, we have two here tonight. And that closes our presentation, and we'll take any questions that you may have at this time.
Okay. All right. Any questions? Okay. Mr. Pinkston, we'll start with you.
Thank you. I just want to make sure I'm understanding the math correctly, just for the purposes of the budget. We're talking about, in this Phase 1 expansion at Ross and Bordeaux, kind of creating new seats in two different ways, right? So the first one is using existing resources in the building to create 200 new pre-K seats, and that won't cost us any additional in the operational budget, correct?
Correct.
Okay. 120 at Ross and 80 at Bordeaux. And then the new costs that are being contemplated in Phase 1 would be to add on top of those 200 another 140 seats at Ross and another 120 seats at Bordeaux for a combined additional 260 seats for a little less than $2 million in the operating budget, right?
Correct.
Okay. And so the bottom line, or the headline here, is Phase 1 will create at least 460 new pre-K seats for a total of about $2 million, essentially, right?
We'll say 260, because 200 are presently already in our schools.
Okay, so that's where I'm not clear. So we've already got existing pre-K seats there. Okay, I got you. So, okay, so 260. So the ones that are, I was looking at the presentation that said cost neutral. What was that referring to?
When you say cost neutral, if we did not add any classes to either Bordeaux or Ross, that's where it would be cost neutral, because those classes are already in the budget.
All right, so we're adding.
Relocation of existing classrooms is the baseline. So at Ross, you're pulling in pre-Ks from Ross, Caldwell, and Glenn. And at Bordeaux, you're pulling in pre-K classrooms from Bordeaux and Cumberland. So our goal was to repurpose the two schools and at a minimum relocate programs there that are already in existence. Then, of course, that's not where we want to stop. But at this point in time, we're not asking you to make the final decision about the budget, the increase in the budget. We don't know where that's going to play out, but that next level is to increase the number of seats at both of those model schools, and that's the additional cost that you're talking about.
Okay, so I guess, another way of asking the question is, there are existing resources in each building, right? And those resources, do those leave the building for the most part with those kids, or do those stay in that building?
At the very baseline, you're talking about moving existing classrooms and programs. So it's a relocation of existing programs and services from different sites where pre-Ks exist to two centralized sites, and those resources are in the budget now and move with the children. Now, there will be some additional cost for going to full-day programs, some program enhancements that we don't have specifically costed out. But that's a fairly minor change in actual cost per pupil there. But let me again emphasize what we're at the baseline. What we're talking about doing is repurposing 2 elementary schools to become 2 pre-K centers and locating existing programs in those 2 buildings. But let me very quickly add, that's just creating the space, creating the model schools, and we want to come back and make a recommendation to grow both of those programs in this budget. And you'll get a recommendation from us in the operating budget to do that.
I don't want to slow down the conversation with a bunch of budget questions tonight. I mean, conceptually, what's in front of us, I'm in favor of, but I do want us to spend some time next week better understanding the financials around this. I had just 2 other quick questions. I missed the work session last month, but I recall from watching the game tape that there's going to be one more component of Phase 1 on another side of town. What would be the timeline for surfacing additional details there?
Which part of that? I'm sorry, I didn't quite follow you on the question.
At last month's work session, there was a discussion about not just doing Ross and Bordeaux, but doing another model center elsewhere. What would be the timeline?
That's very soon. That'll be a recommendation to be included in the operating budget prior to your getting the final recommendation from the administration. We are very interested in bringing third site into existence to serve the southern part of Nashville, and we're negotiating now to identify that third site and to bring it on board.
Okay. My last question is, Bordeaux and Ross, do those buildings retain their names, or what's been the conversation there?
Yes, they would retain their names. The only thing we would have to do is get different school numbers so we can identify that they are pre-K sites.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Hayes?
Sure. I just wanted to, around the cost, and it's been presented as cost neutral. We're not asking our new teachers in these buildings to set up their classrooms, right? We're going to move furniture around. We're going to have some cost. Right. Take technology out, move classrooms around. There is a little bit of an expense there. Right. New stationery for the school, to call it elementary school. Right. Something. Right. Can somebody, and I've kind of asked this question before, and it seems like the response was much more thorough this evening around prioritizing for economically disadvantaged. And I brought up concerns around diversity to the extent we're locating, I don't know the demographics of probably as well as I should. I know if we're prioritizing for economically disadvantaged in a high poverty, racially isolated neighborhood, how do we ensure diversity, right? I would think if we've got a wait list for seats and we're giving a priority to a certain demographic, whoever the racially or the economically disadvantaged folks may be, that it will be hard to have a mix of income and races?
Well, quick answer is that we target, market, and recruit. But let me give you an anecdotal answer. At both of our presentations, we've had parents approaching us who are not a predominant race presently served, who are not economically disadvantaged, who are very interested in participating in this program. We will have regional, if not county-wide, interest in students attending these schools, and so as a basic principle, the strategies, the recruitment strategies that we use to create diverse magnet schools will come into play, but a very concerted effort to attract.
So where I guess I'm struggling is, you say there's a priority for economically disadvantaged, but we're going to recruit across the county. I think that if it's open enrollment, so what I'm wondering is if we have more applicants than slots, which I anticipate we would have, do we have 100% lottery? Or is there a priority?
So,
is there a priority?
First, to address your question, you're asking about the prioritization for selection to ensure diversity. If you have more demand than there is capacity.
But so the way it was presented, it's priority for economically disadvantaged was what was in the presentation.
Well, okay. So in that, though, part of this is revamping the entire pre-K application process. Some of the existing pre-K, such as state-funded pre-K classes, do require a certain economic disadvantage level prior to enrollment, and federally funded have different guidelines. The classes that we're intending to staff at these new pre-K model centers would be locally funded pre-Ks, which have no stipulations regarding income levels. So we have flexibility with the assignment practices that we use. We would suggest that on the front, we've not made any specific decisions or recommendations yet. We're still looking at the specific strategic marketing, but we would think, go ahead, yeah.
No, just there was a slide that said there would be a priority for economically disadvantaged children. So is that the case or is that not the case? And if so, what percentage? Is it 100%? Or less than 100% get the priority?
That specific percentage has not been established, but what we are going to do is make sure that the schools are diverse. So, we're not sure. We may, the initial round of selections might just be a general lottery until we look at the applicant, until we actually know what the first year of demand looks like, and then we can establish certain practices such as geographic priority zones and percentages to establish that priority. But I believe the slide was probably referencing the entire application process and the need to revamp all of the pre-K application processes to streamline them, and some of those pre-Ks do require prioritization for economically disadvantaged.
It's up on the screen right there. That's, I think, the slide you're referring to.
Yes, so targeted recruitment, you're targeting to recruit and prioritize for ECD, is what that says.
Both.
Am I reading that?
Well, it means both.
Yeah, it's about two goals. So we, 72% of the children in our district are economically disadvantaged. And so we would expect with across-the-board application process that somewhere around 70 to 75% of our applications at least would be economically disadvantaged. One of our priorities in the district is to serve economically disadvantaged children. We also have a diversity goal, and that diversity goal is to also recruit applications of children who are not economically disadvantaged. The model programs that we have that will feed into and form the basis of the student enrollment in these two centers is primarily African American, and we expect to get a large number of African American applications, but we also expect to get applications from other races and cultures, and that's our goal. Our goal is to be inclusive. Our goal is to serve special needs children in these programs. Our goal is to offer programs for academically advanced students. So what we're talking about is building a program, and our goal would be ultimately to serve every child in this county who needs and wants a pre-K experience. Not required, but to serve every child in this county, and I think this is a good way to start to do that, but you have to have both goals. We don't want to just create schools. We don't want to create model centers that are 100% one race, 100% free and reduced price lunch. We want to create, and we can, and as you know, our diversity plan calls for that. When we create a new school, when we change zoning, we have to take that into consideration, and we have a whole set of strategies for recruiting a diverse population to these two centers.
I have, and I'll close quickly, just a strong feeling that if we, get this one right at Ross.
Absolutely.
It could trickle up. We've got such racial isolation in all of those schools that attracting new families into the district through pre-K could really have positive dividends for years to come. And that's when I read this, it didn't quite make sense to me.
Yeah, well, I hope this better explains that.
Thank you.
Ms. Sperry?
I just want to say thank you to Lisa and the team today. This has been a very thorough explanation of what our curriculum will look like, and I really appreciate the specificity that we have. I did attend the meeting at Ross, and
we did that for you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. The meeting at Ross, I didn't get to the one at Bordeaux, but it was a lot of excitement. Parents of different diversities were there,
right.
And different backgrounds. And I can see how these two centers, being centrally located, parents can drop off students on their way to work. And I'm also excited about all the staff development that we can offer at these two centers for our teachers. And as I think this looks great the way we've started, but I can only see that getting better because of these two centers. And share and it'll just roll and continue to be better. I like the idea of the self-regulation and how important that is at the pre-K level. And I'm very impressed with the report card. It's a high-quality, holistic report card that really shows, the ability to look at idiosyncrasies of students and capitalize on those. I love the writing, developmental continuum here from scribbles to strings of letters. So I think this is going to be exciting. I know Will was ready to vote on it the last time we talked about it. But the other thing is that this is part, really, of our comprehensive literacy program. And what did you tell me the other day? We've never had a real comprehensive literacy program. And so not only are we moving in the right direction, but I think we're doing things that other districts, I think we're ahead of the other districts and can be not only a state, but a national leader. And so thank you for the presentation and the specificity.
And Ms. Farron, I wanted to add that the pre-K is included in the comprehensive literacy program now, and so we'll continue to add to that. And I also wanted to give credit to our teacher leaders who worked on the pre-K standards-based report card, and some of them are here, they stood up, but we looked at the early learning development standards and pulled from those standards what we named the power standards of what children would need to know and be able to do before they go on to kindergarten. So I wanted to point that out.
Well, thank you.
Dr. Brennan?
Mr. Weber? On the community impact sheet, it mentions multiple choice options available to families impacted by rezoning. Is this in reference to the first through fourth graders, or?
So this is in reference to the students who are currently at Ross and Bordeaux who will be reassigned for next year. And so when we met with those families, we explained last week what choice options are available and how they could apply, and we intend to have follow-up community meetings, and following the board approval, we will mail direct letters specific to each family informing them of how they are being impacted and how to take advantage of options.
Thank you.
Ms. Shepherd?
Just want to reiterate my colleague, Mr. Hayes' remarks. If we get this right, and it's just it's a phenomenal program for all of our kids, and it speaks to the, APF that we talked about earlier. It speaks to that. And so if we get this right, it's just going to spread like wildfire. So I think it's real exciting stuff.
I'm really, and we talk about speed of improvement and speed of change. I want us to be the first district of any size in the state of Tennessee to say that we have universal pre-K. And that puts us head and shoulders above everybody else in this area. It's not about being ahead of everybody else. We want to be the standard. We want to set the pace and be the model for that.
It definitely got the
And I'll say, I'd like to correct both Ms. Shepherd and Mr. Hayes. We will get this right. There's no if. We will get this right. There's the confidence. When this is done correctly, we will be the model, not just a local or state model, but a national model. And I commend you all for a fantastic job. I was able to attend both of the community meetings, and I will say overall, there was very positive comments made. Of course, there were some concerns, and I'd like for you, if you would, to sort of address a couple of things that were brought up, just so everyone is aware. We talked about before and after school, or the question was raised, before and after school programs, will they be available? And I believe the response was, there will be, but they will be fee-based. Is that correct? Okay. And pre-K in these centers will not have a fee associated with it?
That's correct.
Okay. And I think, Chris, you kind of touched on how this will affect the lottery wait list. And once you get everything else worked out, I guess you'll talk a little bit more about that. But can you, I know the question was raised a couple of times at both of these meetings, how will this affect the lottery wait list? Because some of the parents, the concerns were, this is happening after the lottery has already occurred. How is that affecting me? So can you talk a little bit about that?
So you are correct. There were families there that had concerns that they were not being informed about this until after the selection process had already been ran. So what I explained to the families is that our existing processes allows for families to apply even if, it's past the selection period. And in fact, many of these schools in the geographic area and around them are good optional schools that have available space and capacity. So I listed many of those options there. And some of the families had specific questions relative to where they lived and where they would be reassigned. And I would speak what Dr. Register said. We had, the parents that we talked to after the meeting, we stuck around and answered their questions. And even the ones that, appeared to have some concerns, they appeared much better after we talked to them. And I know that we took down some additional specific questions, and all families have been communicated with, and from my understanding, very satisfied with their responses thus far.
Okay. Again, I'll say overall, both meetings were extremely positive, and it says a lot that everyone was willing to answer the questions of all the parents and whoever else came out. But it really spoke quite highly that the executive principals for all of the schools that were affected were at those meetings as well. Not only that, but there were pre-K teachers that were there who would give their testimonies about how the program works. So I think that went a long way in easing a lot of the concerns that some parents had. And I can't remember her name, but the executive principal is at Lillard. What's the other school? Not Cumberland, but the other one.
Cumberland and Lillard.
And, okay, it wasn't Cumberland. Oh, by the way, stay out of my district and quit taking my principals. Deborah Thompson. Okay. She kept referring to the students as my babies. And I think that made, that put parents at ease, because for me, and I don't have a pre-K student at all, but it made me feel at ease, like this woman really cares about what's going to happen to these students. Once they come through the door of her school, they're her babies, and it doesn't matter what anybody says. So I think that went a long way in easing a lot of the fears of the parents, because there's always some transition concerns. What happens when my child leaves a school that they have been comfortable with and goes to a school that they don't know? And so I think it was extremely important that those principals were there, and I'd like to say thank you to every one of the principals that came out, and every single one of the teachers that came out. It meant a lot, I think, to the parents. So great presentations, by the way, and I think and thank you for staying after and answering those questions. I think that was very much appreciated. So any other questions or comments?
I just want to add, I like the idea that we have a parent component where parents will have an opportunity to come in and actually see certain behaviors modeled, and even have opportunities to practice some of those behaviors with their own students. So I think this is, it's just so exciting to see us as the leaders here.
I think it's kind of cool, too, that it'll be a full-day program.
Yeah.
So it'll be it's a different take on regular pre-K, so I think it'll be pretty exciting. So any other discussion, questions, comments? Fantastic. We have a motion on the floor, and it's been properly seconded. I'll repeat, the recommendation is to approve reconfiguration of Bordeaux and Ross Elementary Schools to model pre-K centers for the 2014-2015 school year, and we are going to put it to a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you all so much for the presentation. It's really fantastic. And believe it or not, there's more. So we will move into the director's report. Dr. Register.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll ask Katie Poore and Katie, who else is doing the presentation? Susan, Derek, Shannon to come up. I promise this one won't be as long as the last one, right, Katie?
That's correct.
Okay. Let me set the context for this. You all know that we have had a task force working on strategic compensation for a period of months now. Dr. Brannon has been the board representative on this task force, and we feel like we've come quite a long ways. We're not through with the work, but it would be a mistake for us not to update the board. And so I've asked Katie and her colleagues to give the board a quick update on the teacher pay plan proposal. Katie?
Great. Thank you. And we do have a lot of slides, and we're going to curtail some of those and just get to your questions as quickly as possible. But there are some significant changes from the last time you saw the work that we've been doing on the pay plan. So we really want to make sure that you understand where we're going and then get your feedback. We're going to start with just kind of reminding you where we were. So in November, we brought a previous plan to you about that we've been working on for about 8 months in collaboration with teachers and in collaboration with our steering committee that Dr. Register just mentioned. We had some good feedback from you, one piece of which was, is it going to really move the needle? Is it going to do enough? We went back to the drawing board, went back to teachers. We've been out on the road talking to a variety of stakeholders, but mostly teachers, to get their feedback, and we're coming back to you with a revised proposal. We're not asking for any vote or decision tonight. We just wanted to update you and get your feedback. So what were the main things that we've been hearing over the last several months? We have been hearing loud and clear, do we really need to change anything? Which I've talked to some of you about it already. And we also heard, as I mentioned before, will this really move the needle? Will it make an impact on both retaining and recruiting great teachers, but also on our kids in the end? Is it a fair system, and is it sustainable? I'm going to take a minute to focus on the first piece. Why do we need to even change anything? And then we'll get into the description of the recommendations that will hopefully address the other 3 major areas of feedback. So as you know before, we have mentioned many times the reason why we think we need to be doing this work around strategic compensation is because we don't think that our current pay plan is doing what we need it to do to attract and retain great teachers in our district. We'll talk a little bit more about that in specifics when we get to the details of the plan, but suffice it to say that we want a plan that really does recognize the great teaching that's going on in our district and rewards that teaching. So the current pay plan, we don't think helps to retain teachers. We did a survey of some what we called irreplaceable teachers in our district who are really the top-notch teachers who we know we don't want to get rid of. At both we don't want to incent to leave the district at both the veteran teachers in our district as well as early teachers, and 53% of early teachers in this irreplaceable group indicated that they plan to teach longer than they do to stay in MNPS. So that means that we have a huge opportunity here to really focus on what we can do to retain those early career teachers in our district. Of course, compensation is not the only reason or probably the predominant reason why anyone goes into teaching, but we do think it's a part of the puzzle that we can help to retain more teachers and keep them in our district longer. We also think that the current pay plan doesn't differentiate the way that it pays teachers, and so we have an issue with teachers, regardless of the performance that they're doing in the classroom, really having the same amount of pay at the end of the day. We have heard from these irreplaceable teachers and others that this is a disincentive of sorts, and it's frustrating to have our ineffective, less effective teachers down the hall. We don't think that we have a huge problem with ineffective teaching in our district. In fact, we think that upwards of 85% of our teachers are knocking it out of the ballpark every day, but we do recognize that the current pay structure does not differentiate at all between any type of effectiveness in the classroom. So suffice it to say that we really want a pay plan that will attract and retain, or at least help to attract and retain great teachers in our district. We want to recognize and reward great teaching in our district, and we strongly suggest that the current pay structure just misses the mark in both of those areas. We do also think that this pay plan will benefit upwards of 85% of our teachers, and will give some teachers in our district a significant opportunity to earn a lot more in their lifetime. So I'm going to keep going, actually. Right? Okay, so we talked before about annual increases to base pay based on performance. That's also part of this main proposal that we're bringing forward to you. We also previously had talked about consolidating the 5 lanes of advanced degrees to 3 lanes. We are continuing to advocate for that, but we also would suggest that the proposal should include district prioritized advanced degrees as opposed to any advanced degrees. And by district prioritized, we mean those degrees that we think we're getting a big bang for our buck, and we really think are doing some great things for our teachers in terms of continuous learning. Things like masters in any content area that would deepen the level of knowledge of that content area, masters in areas that are areas of shortage in our district. We can talk about that in more specifics and what we mean by district priorities in just a second. We also include additional stipend opportunities. We would like to recognize the importance of continuous learning and provide a $10,000 stipend to any teacher who gets a degree that's not in that district prioritized degree list, as well as providing additional pay for leadership opportunities at the school level as determined by the needs of that school. And then finally, the National Board Certification, which we currently provide an annual stipend for. We would like to propose that remain. Starting salary would be based on years of experience and degree attainment, just as it currently is, except for we would only have the 3 lanes of degrees as opposed to the 5, as you can see here. Pause me if I'm going too fast, but I am going to go. Okay. Performance increases would be based on the team evaluation model, and you can see the percentage increases for each level of the team model. So you would get a 4% increase on your base pay if you receive a level 5. For each year you receive a level 5, 2.5 for level 4, et cetera. We also recognize that we have about a little under 700 teachers in our district who are misaligned in their evaluation scores, meaning they receive high marks in their observation ratings, but they receive a low overall composite score because the school-wide growth score is pulling that down. We want to provide some sort of safety net for those teachers. We don't want to disincentivize teachers to teach in struggling schools or teachers to teach in non-tested areas by somehow not recognizing the efforts of that misaligned group. And so we're going to provide a safety net of sorts that would ensure some sort of pay increase for teachers who are knocking it out of the ballpark, but whose scores might not be showing that because they don't have student data of their own. We also talked about the advanced degree based on district prioritized list, the one-time stipend, leadership roles, national board. So that was a very quick run through. We want to show you what the new additions to the plan really mean for an actual teacher. So Derek's going to walk through some scenarios for you.
Thanks, Katie. So what I want to do out of the gate is just show you a couple of what would be kind of real-life examples of teachers in different scenarios, and then I have a number of slides that show kind of how this plays out over a teacher's career. So I'm going to show you just 3 examples of potential teachers and what their 5-year earnings might look like under the current system and under the proposed system. So this teacher is an 8th-year undergraduate degree teacher, consistent Team 3 performer, who in his 10th year earns a graduate degree. Got another teacher, she's a fourth-year undergraduate teacher, and she's a consistent, high performer at a team level 4. And then the third teacher, who's more of a mid-career veteran teacher, 13-year graduate degree, or teacher with a master's degree, who earns, a variety of team ratings over the next 4 years. And I just want to show you how it plays out for these 3 teachers in terms of, under all of these scenarios, the proposed system is either slightly better or greatly better than under the current system. I'm going to show you a little more data that exemplifies that. So this slide is identifying, or this data is going to show you how much a teacher could earn. This one is an undergraduate example. So this is just your teacher with your bachelor's degree, and what they currently earn under our pay system in years 1 through 5, 1 through 10, 1 through 15, and what that looks like. So currently a teacher works in our district for 20 years. He or she will make $915,000 over that career. That's absent any cost of living adjustments. That's just straight 15 years on the current kind of step system. As a team 3, this is if this person was a team 3 for all of those years consistently, this is what their pay would look like. You can see that it's better across the board, with the exception of the 20 and 25 years where it's like 0.2% less in those years. If you're a consistent team 4, always better. Consistent team 5, significantly better. And I've got the same data for master's degree here, and you see the same trend. It's pretty much better across the board for this group as well. So this next one talks about as a current teacher, what we wanted to compare was, this is the rate of progress. So currently, to reach the average salary in the graduate and undergraduate and graduate lane, it takes 11 years to get to the district average for those groups. Under the under the proposed pay plan, if you're a team 3 for, consistently, it would take you 9 years to get to that same point. And if you had a master's, it would take you the same amount of time. And then if you're a 4 or 5, you have accelerated path to get to that number. This one's just going to show you what your salary would be in 25 years if I was in my 25th year under the current salary structure, and I have a bachelor's degree, I'm making $52,673. That's my annual salary. Under the proposed system, if I was a team 3 for 25 years, I'd have a slightly higher salary. If I was a team 4, I'd have a much higher salary. And if I was a team 5 for 25 straight years, I'd have a pretty nice looking salary. And I checked the math on this 3 or 4 times, and 4% over 25 years really does add up to that. In terms of sustainability, we modeled out what the cost of our current system versus our proposed system was, and this chart reflects that. So you'll see that over time, this proposed system is slightly more expensive, but even at 5 years out, it's still within about a percentage point. So generally, that feels pretty sustainable to me. And then there's some limitations we didn't model in here, so these costs don't reflect cost of living adjustments, which would have a neutral impact because it would be applied to both groups or both plans equally. And then there's some other details there which I don't need to go into necessarily. I think we just have one more slide about the timeline. Sorry, I have one more slide. I just want to show you this. So 5 years in, we talked about this is kind of will it move the needle, and what are we incenting? This tells me sort of 5 years in, what percent of a discretionary pay is being driven by performance, advanced degrees, and leadership roles, and this is the breakdown. It's basically a 70-30 split, which is consistent with when we pulled our steering committee and said, what do you think is a good split between education and performance? They all said 70-30 was the prevailing number, so we actually ended up getting right about there. I'm going to turn it over to Shannon.
Good evening. So let's talk recommended timeline. We talked to many teachers. I just came from an elementary school before I came here about the proposal and the recommended timeline. What we are hearing loud and clear from teachers is a concern around the PARCC assessment. It's new, kind of unsure, and so we think we have a timeline that kind of fits naturally with the PARCC. So in 2014-15, next school year, we'll implement the PARCC assessment. Next school year, pay will not be affected for any teacher. So new teacher currently in the district, it'll be the current structure, years of experience and degrees, and then we'll do the park in 2014-15. Then in 15-16, we'll give current employees the ability to opt in if they so choose. So this would be based off of the 2014-15 park. However, it would be a hold harmless. So we're not going to penalize anybody for potential implementation dips in the park. This would strictly reward teachers who ended up level 4 or 5 with the park. So no one's going to be penalized, but we want to reward those that have done a really great job. Many of our teachers have been preparing for years for the park assessment, and we really think we should reward those that end up doing a really great job. And then 16-17, for those that opt in 15-16, then they would be on the current structure moving forward. And so that would be an opt-in. So for those that decide not to opt in, then they would just do current steps and lanes until 2017-18, which we would go full implementation.
That's the end of our very quick, but hopefully a kind of more detailed explanation of where we are. We just want to take your questions and comments and get your feedback on the proposal.
Okay. Ms. Shepherd?
I have a question, and maybe you covered this and I missed it, but what is the reasoning behind the opt-in, opt-out that you're offering?
So the thinking of the steering committee was that we have hired teachers under one structure that they thought that they were going to be paid off of for the next several years, however long they want to stay in the district. There's a little bit of an uncomfortable feeling among the steering committee members of just saying, nope, it's changing next year no matter what. And so we gave the opportunity to opt into the system, get used to it. Now, again, after 3 years, there is no opt-in option, and it would go away. Everybody would be in the new system, but it just seemed like a little bit slower and more thoughtful way to implement such a significant change to teacher pay.
So in your visits to the various schools, have you had a sense for how many would go either way?
So currently in our salary structure, only about 50% of our teachers are ever eligible for a step increase in any given year. That's because we freeze the beginning part of the salary structure and freeze the latter part. Under the new pay plan, 100% would be eligible. So even if a teacher is not sure about park or not really sure about, the testing timeline, they might want to opt in just because they would have the opportunity to be eligible. We have gotten feedback that some would not be comfortable opting in, but we actually think that those might be teachers who would not benefit from the program, from the new system, or roughly less than 15% of our faculty.
Okay, so this is going to be a real touchy question then. Of the teachers that have told you that they're really uncomfortable with opting in, that there would definitely be an opting out, would those be some of our less effective teachers?
It's hard to know because these are anecdotal conversations. My inclination is telling me that might be the case, simply because the system actually benefits you significantly if you are at the higher end of the team evaluation model. But I also recognize that there are concerns about the team evaluation and other things that might be driving dissatisfaction as well.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Questions? Yep, okay. We'll go with Ms. Brogan, then Mr. Hayes.
Okay. Okay, I'll start with my easy questions first. The annual stipends that you mentioned, are those recurring? And what's a general amount on those?
So the annual stipends, there are a couple different versions of the stipend. One would be a national board stipend. Currently, we pay $4,000 a year, and that's recurring. Another would be a leadership opportunity, and that would be a one-time stipend for a teacher to fulfill a leadership role. It could continue beyond 1 year, but it would be done on a one-year basis. And then the third is the stipend for advanced degrees that are not in that district prioritized list. list, and that would be a $10,000 stipend over 5 years, paid $2,000 a year over 5 years, so that we could use it as a retention strategy as well. If you leave the district, you would not get the remaining part of that stipend.
Okay. And the district prioritized degrees, does that also apply to doctorates, or just any doctorate gets?
Yes, it applies to doctorate and master's.
Okay. All right. So, okay, another question is, what are we doing to incentivize teachers to teach at our low-income schools?
Yeah, great question. So we had some very thoughtful conversations in the steering committee and with faculties across the district about our high-needs schools and whether or not this might disincentivize teachers from being in those schools or wanting to go to those schools. What we decided to do is develop a separate strategy for recruiting and retaining great teachers at our high-needs schools, or at a subset of schools that we deem on an annual basis are needing some more attention in terms of staffing. So we are going back to the drawing board and taking a look at some short-term retention and recruitment strategies that we can do, whether it's pay, a $7,000 bonus to a teacher who moves to a high needs school, or what have you. We're just going to kind of get the feel of teachers. Some teachers in our district already used retention and recruitment bonuses like that, and so we want to talk to them, see what incented them to go to certain schools, and then get a better feel so we can bring back another proposal for you that will specifically address that need, because we recognize that it is a need, and we do not want this pay plan to harm any school in the district. So.
Okay. And then I have to point out, which I've already pointed out to you, my issues. First of all, I want to say, clearly you guys have put a lot of good work in this, and I think it's improving more and more over time. So thank you for that. And I'm looking at the performance increases, which I'm hung up on, and they're relatively nominal. But then if you look at the overall time, the whole career, they're not. But my problem is, and I'm just going to say this, I've said this several times, the main problem is that we've got 70% of our teachers that do not have their own classroom data. And so 50% of their performance rating, correct me if I'm wrong, but approximately 50%.
A little less.
60%?
No, it's a little less.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
observations. 40%. But your point is valid.
Somewhere. Yeah. So 40% is tied to standardized testing from other teachers' classrooms. I mean, I can't get around that. And so I love if it's performance pay that I think is fair and is actually measuring their performance, that'd be one thing. But then, so you have that problem, which is that the vast majority of our teachers do not have their own classroom data, and they're getting rated on other classrooms. Then if you even take that out of the picture, you're basing it on standardized test scores, which are problematic because you've got two measures. You've got the TCAP, which measures socioeconomics, basically. And you've got TBOS, which is a very volatile measure that a lot of people have questioned. So I think that those are both sort of flawed measurements. And and that's what we keep talking about. I mean, we've got to fix the teacher evaluation. I think that obviously we're looking at that. But I find it problematic to base, the pay on these test scores, particularly when the teachers don't have the classroom data of their own. So, for the record.
So that's precisely why we're talking about a deferral of the process. There are really two issues, and I think you've correctly identified those. One is for teachers to develop a higher level of trust in the evaluation system, and it's not perfect now. But it'll get better every year, and that trust level will grow as we go forward. But there needs to be a deferral of implementation for that to happen. Then the second issue is the one that I hear a great deal of anxiety from teachers about is what happens when I change from being evaluated based on TCAP to PARC. And what this deferral does is it allows us not to have teachers go through an implementation dip or a transition from one test to the other. And the intention is next year the park assessment will become the baseline. And then a second year, we have park assessment again. So the opportunity to measure one year's test against growth the next year is there. And so I think right now, I think we are concerned about transition, about implementation to Common Core, about transition to a different test. And we're also still learning how to do a credible job with the teacher evaluation system that we have in place. And that's why we have a 2-year deferral on this. And I don't know if that makes you feel better about it or not, but as we had a teacher meeting out at Andrew Jackson Elementary School last night, and we talked about this with 30 or so teachers that were in the room last night, and it seemed to make sense with them, and we got positive reactions from that. And I think that's what we're beginning to hear across the district, and that is precisely the reason we put in that deferral of the program.
I actually just today talked to a great teacher who walked me out of the building and said, I'm a good teacher, and I know that I'm a good teacher, and he said, I will continue to work harder because this incents me. I'm doing a great job, and I'll just work harder to do a better job.
I'm just wondering if we can't find a way to, peer evaluations or something that is a little fairer than to try to tie it all to a test score that may or may not reflect the teacher's performance.
So we are also simultaneously separate from this work, working with the design team for evaluating the evaluation system in our district and really taking a look at the way we've implemented team and then also the team model as a whole. As everyone on the board knows, we have certain parameters that we are tied to by state law, but we have a lot of flexibility in terms of the way we implement certain aspects of those. So we want to take a deeper look and see if we need to be making adjustments to team implementation in our own district and how we can just simply improve the way teachers are getting feedback and hearing about the performance in their classroom.
Mr. Hayes?
Dr. Steele just mentioned that we also are expanding the number of tested teachers in our district. We are using a portfolio for our art teachers in the district this year, which will allow them to have their own student data assigned to them, so they'll have their own teacher effect scores. We don't want to probably scale that to every single subject and test every single area and have our kids testing all the time, but it is an example of where we can probably meet in this kind of messy middle area that both the teacher and the students.
Mr. Hayes?
Can we pop back 2 slides?
This one?
Yeah. Oh,
this
yes. One? Yeah, so I'm curious. We're making a lot of investments in continuing education for our staff. And if we look at the other slide that looked at roughly 28% of our teachers were 1s and 2s, I was curious within this model, did you model that all teachers stayed at their current level, or did you recognize the fact that we hope and aspire to the fact that we don't have any 1s and 2s, or we have very much smaller percentage of 1s and 2s in the next couple of years?
The intention was to model conservatively, and so we just projected out the same level of effectiveness in that range. There'd be approximately 5% of teachers would be 1s, and 10% of teachers would be 2s, and then the other 85% would be distributed equally. Now, the way that the modeling actually occurred is that it's randomized, and so it doesn't say a level 1 teacher is a level 1 teacher in perpetuity, but it somewhat randomizes their results year after year in order to create some kind of more realistic looking modeling. But it does not assume that over time the shift goes more towards 3s, 4s, and 5s, because it already starts with a pretty heavy skew to begin with.
I can't recall the exact term that Dr. Changus used when we were discussing the academic performance framework, but there was an assumption that to meet our goals, all children had a teacher at a certain quality level. And so I just wonder if we get to that level, within this. So, if we're conservative or under overestimating, I'm trying to make sure I'm very comfortable with the 5-year budget impact and that it's realistic.
I see what you're saying. So over time, if teacher quality dramatically improves and everyone's a 4 or
which
5,
is what we
does that
aspire, right? We aspire to that.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, maybe it's a little bit more expensive than what we're showing, or in line with what we're showing?
It would be. It could be. It currently models that, what's your 5%, 15% of teachers are a 2 or less, 85% are a 3 or higher. And there is a slight skew towards higher percent. It's not a perfect bell curve. It's skewed a little bit to the right. But we can model it with a further skew, and that would push the line up a little bit. But in that case, yeah, it may be an investment we're worth paying for.
Right. And then just one other question. There was a chart that had kind of a graph like this that had a first year at around 40 and then at the end around 100,000. Was that?
Oh, yeah. Let me show you. This. No, hang on, I skipped past it. That's what would my salary be if?
Yes. So in the 25th, under this proposal, in the 25th year, if somebody's a Team 5 for 25 years, their annual salary is $103,000? Yes. Fantastic. Wow.
Hoping that might address the need to move the needle a little bit more.
Yeah. Thank
So
you.
the other end of that, and I would hope that we would never see this, but a 25-year veteran with 25 ones would still be making beginning pay.
Wouldn't be here necessarily.
Right. Right. So and as I was talking to Lisa, I think the real strength in this is that you have a more rapid movement up a scale for those people that are high performers, and the ones who are not, the ones who are low performers, don't get advancements. They don't take pay cuts, but they don't get advancements. And I will say to you that I think that's an incentive for people to leave.
Ms. Berry?
A couple of questions. And Dr. Register, you probably can answer this. Are we still considering looking at the Hamilton County model?
Right, and they can both speak to that. Shannon?
Yes, we went down and visited and had great conversations, and that's part of the reason that we're creating a design team. Mike Rutherford, who does the Sokol work and the artisan teacher, has agreed to help us facilitate those conversations. It's kind of a neutral and to bring not only what's happening across Tennessee, but what's also happening nationally in terms. So yes, it's absolutely on the table as part of a discussion.
And are we going to have a study session on this at some point to hear what all you learned and how it would be different than the team model?
Yes, absolutely. We have our first work team meeting actually on Monday, on President's Day. And so we'll have several months of going through research as well as probably visiting Hamilton County again, but also talking to individual principals who've implemented team with success, others that have questions about it, bring everybody to the table, and then come back with a set of thoughts and recommendations to you all.
And hopefully a pilot next year.
We are talking about a potential pilot at a couple of schools of the possibly the team rubric, but using the Hamilton County process, something like that.
Good. And then my other question, although that was more than one, wasn't it? The national board certification. Presently, do we help teachers? I know there's a cost associated with that. Do we help teachers in that initial cost?
No, we used to, and I think some of my colleagues would be better suited to answer this probably. We used to pay for some of the application fee. We did not do that this past year, and I don't think we did that the year before either, just because of budget constraints. But we still do pay the $4,000 annual stipend every year, as long as you're teaching in the area in which you got certified.
What is the initial cost?
It's almost $2,000, I believe. So it's an investment for sure. We think it's a good one, and we want people to seriously consider it. We have a small number of teachers in our district who are nationally board certified, and we'd really like to take a look at incenting that a little bit better.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Kim?
Actually, just to that point, is that correlated with performance?
Well, the research is fairly weak. Whether national board certification is directly correlated with increases in either teacher performance or student achievement, although there's a lot of disclaimers around that research in terms of a self-selection bias and some other things that might be happening. For the teachers that we have talked to who have gone through the process, it's some of the best PD we've ever heard about, and we like it for that reason. There's not great research on PD in general, so I think that's some area that we could really improve on, and this just seems one area that we've gotten really good feedback about. So
first of all, this is a market improvement. This is what my other overarching piece of feedback is. So I love that. So there was the pie chart that illustrated the split on so that someone who has a doctorate degree in their first year is, privileges and benefits accrue from the very beginning, from the jump. And it just accrues over time, and then plus you've got performance increases on top of that, which, given that, as we discussed last time, the research did not show that there is a correlation, which is tragic because, frankly, then our lives will all be easier. We just cycle people through programs. And so I was just wondering about the split, because not that I'm advocating necessarily for the 68% of the pie, but the leadership role seems higher. So for the person who's in the school building, trying to help build the culture, trying to go above and beyond to provide the care and the support, necessary to move our kids forward, it seems like 2% is a very small piece of the pie when they're actively in the building in that moment trying to move our students. So anyway, that weighs is more funny to me. Those based on the research and then also just.
you want me to respond to that, or do you want me to just take that feedback? Either way. The research is not great in terms of specific advanced degrees in relationship to increased teacher performance, although there is some research, especially around math and science, that does show some significant increases on student achievement and teacher performance. So I wouldn't put a disclaimer. I would put a disclaimer that it's not necessarily true that all advanced degrees are not correlated. I also want to add that those are only looking at tested subjects. Most of the research is only looking at tested subjects, the subjects that you can test from. So that, again, that's a 30% bias sample. I would say, too, that we had serious conversations about that exact topic in the steering committee. I think as a district, we want to move in the right direction, and I think most of us, I know all of you all, and I think most of us who've worked on this plan as hard as we have, hope that we know what we are doing and moving in the right direction, but there is still a level of uncertainty around whether or not an entire pay-for-performance system, in whatever way you want to put it, is going to work in whatever the parameters are, in any sort of fashion. So we felt that this was a way to recognize that performance is our priority, and performance and quality teaching is absolutely what we need to focus on, but also recognizing that we don't necessarily have all of the data and all of the research that shows exactly what a pay plan should look like perfectly. If we did, then obviously every district would be implementing it. So we just felt like this was a balanced approach that met the needs of our district where it is now without necessarily disincenting teachers to come to us.
And for what it's worth, the opt-in, opt-out, I think that's very wise. It's smart. Thank you.
Any other questions? Fantastic.
We'll come back to you with a next iteration. Thank y'all for the great work you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Madam Chair, I have one other quick item on the director's report that I'd like to address, and I want to ask Dr. Changus and Dr. Stinson to come up. We had quite a bit of parental and community feedback to news report last week about a student survey that was pulled, and I want to ask them to take just a moment to correct what may have been some misperception about what happened during that process. So, Paul, I'll turn it over to you.
I'll start off, and I'm just going to take a minute and let Tina get into some of Tina Stinson get into some of the details. But first, let me say we do value the voice of teachers, students, and parents in our decision making, and it's part of our strategic plan. It's part of our academic performance framework. But at the same time, there is a lot of surveying that goes on, some of which comes through our department, some of which doesn't. And we're going to talk about some procedures that we're putting in place to make sure that there's a review of everything that comes through. But a lot of it is tied to funding. A lot of it is grant evaluation. Some of it is state mandate. But there has been some negative press, and we're going to talk about steps that we're going to take going forward. And I'll let Dr. Stinson come in.
Okay, so I have just about 3 minutes worth of things to talk about. I just wanted to go over what some of the district-wide student surveys are this year and then talk about what we're going to do next year. As you all probably know, we are implementing the tripod student survey in fall and spring at all tier levels. Every teacher's students will be surveyed. We have done a lot of parent outreach about that survey and will continue to do so. The next survey, the Safe and Supportive Schools Grant, S3 middle and high school surveys, is the survey that received a bit of negative press. The window for that just closed for high school, and the state had 26 districts participating in this grant, and the state themselves closed the middle school version of the survey. The state did not feel like we needed to do anything more than passive consent. Had this come through our process, we probably would have asked for active consent on the sensitive questions, and we're going to talk about how we're going to do that.
You want to just address what the difference between the two?
Yes. Active consent is we send home a piece of paper saying you participate or you have your child participate in this survey, and passive consent is a note home saying this survey is going on. You can come examine the survey, opt out if you want to, but it's on the parent to take that action. Federal and state surveys often don't use the active consent. It seriously lowers participation rate, but we're going to talk about what we're going to do going forward in a minute. There is a short survey we've been hearing questions about on the writing assessment itself that's going on now. Only 3 of those questions are anything you could consider to be personal, and they're about computer use in the home. We are undergoing an audit, as you probably all know, and there are probably going to be student surveys coming out of that audit, but we have not yet heard what those are, whether they're going to be a sample or broad, what kinds of questions they want to ask, but that is probably coming. And then we have, throughout the year, several grant-required surveys at selected schools or in selected grades. Okay, because of the parental consent and increased concern with the amount of time being taken by surveys, all federal, state, and district surveys are going to now come through the review process we put external researchers through. There's a 3-person committee that examine every survey that goes out in all research to make sure that it's valid and reliable, but also that proper parental consent is being sought. So right now, we had only used that for community agencies and research institutions. We're going to use it for all surveys, internal and external now. For surveys with sensitive questions, such as the S3, but there's also a big one that comes up, the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, that also only requires passive consent. We're going to work through some of the details, but we probably are going to continue with passive consent or seek active consent from parents. But we're going to publicize that these are going on much more thoroughly and send home notes about the survey's nature, contents, reasons for doing it, and so forth. And we're going to try to limit the surveys we give when possible. For instance, the audit surveys that are just coming up could not have been predicted by us in August. But we're going to limit surveys when possible to those we can schedule on an annual calendar, and we're going to send a calendar home with students to parents at the beginning of the year. And we will add in informed consent as needed when other surveys come up, and for all of the grant-related surveys. So we do hope to clarify a little bit of communication. A lot of the surveys are just simply required for funding, and really the funds go to grants that do great things in our schools, and we just need to evaluate them. And so are there any questions? That's short presentation on this topic.
Dr. Brennan, you look like you're pondering.
Yes, so for someone who makes a request to do some research within the system, and do they have to let you know that they're going to do a survey? First of all, do they have to let you know?
We have a district policy that requires that they come through our department, but the 3-person committee that Dr. Stinson mentioned includes other department staff. Leadership and Learning is involved, federal programs specifically, and it has to be approved. But in the past, there has been a tendency sometimes for people working on degrees to bypass us. Schools are getting much better about communicating to us because of the vast number of surveys out there.
So if they do let you know that they're going to want to do a survey, is there a review team for the survey? Okay.
That's the 3-person team that I mentioned.
Okay.
However, there's some surveys we can't refuse, such as those associated with funds we've already accepted, and they can come up at any minute and not tell us in advance of the grant cycle. So in those cases, at this point, we had not reviewed those, and we will start reviewing those at this time.
Yeah, I'll just add, there is a formal review process. It's on our website, but there has to be a letter of approval, and principals are contacting us to make sure that that has gone through the process.
Any other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Madam Chair, that concludes my director's report.
Fantastic, thank you. And we will move into the board chairman's report, but I will defer to Vice Chair Anna Shepard, Advocacy Committee report.
I'll be short and sweet. On current legislation that are currently in the House and in the Senate, and that would potentially affect our district and our students. So we could discuss what that legislation is. Just as a side note, I participate in Friday morning conference calls because I chair the Coalition of Large School Districts, and I am being kept abreast of, bills that are potentially coming up for discussion or that have been discussed. So then I in turn, will share that with my colleagues.
Thank you, Ms. Shepard. And I want to quickly give a brief update on the board retreat that we had, that was held on January 24th and 25th. And I will ask my colleagues if they would care to chime in, please do so. The board retreat, I think, went quite well. We talked a lot about policy review and policy updates, and so there were several policies that we did look at and review, and Ms. Frog now has a pretty big job on her hands to go through and get all that, get all those reviews, those updates put out for board members. We were in the no-service capital of the world at Fall Creek Falls. Felt like we were being held captive because we're so used to cell phone service, and it just didn't happen. But it was a very good retreat, and I thank you all for attending. So anyone who has any comments about the retreat, or Ms. Frog?
I just want to brag that we went through every single board policy and reviewed them. And there is some follow-up work to be done, but I've already sat down with Cameo Bobo, and we have updated everything we could without further input, so we are making huge progress. I don't think that's been done in a long time.
Yeah. And for those who don't understand, that was not a simple process. Every single policy we reviewed. So it was a very good exercise, and I do appreciate your willingness to participate, and thank you very much for that. Any other questions or comments about board retreat? Well, you guys did a great job. And so that pretty much concludes the board chair's report. So any other business? It is, look at that, it is 7:29. So Ms. Froeg, you have the floor.
There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
A lot of stuff tonight.
Yeah.